Welcome to Left Night with Kendra Dawsey, and here's your host, Kendra Dawsey.
Hi, I just put a bite of food in my mouth. How's everyone doing? How are you doing, Zach?
I'm doing great. I have no food in my mouth.
Oh, that doesn't sound that
anything
great.
Good? Are you eating anything good?
It's stuff that my roommate ordered, and they let me have it. It's good.
You stole your roommate's food.
They let me have they could hear me like vehemently defending myself. They let me have the food. I have text messages that prove I could have this food.
Okay. All right. I'm not. All right. Okay. So we have a very special episode today, don't we, Kendra?
We do have a very special episode, Zach. So today's episode is all about Beantown. That's right, Boston, Boston, all of that.
The hub of the universe.
Hub of the universe, yeah. A place with a lot of colleges,
yes.
Place known for racism. And people at home may be thinking, why do a segment about Boston on a show about Marxism that is supposed to be about like leftist news takes? Like, why talk about Boston when it's only known for having lots of racists and lots of Rotaries? Mm-hmm. And like those things are true about Boston. Like, yeah, there's lots of racists, lots of Rotaries. The Rotaries are very annoying. There's a lot going on in Boston where it's kind of placed itself as something very important in the country's colonial history, right? Like when we think about America and think about how like liberty and the like sense of like people fighting for freedom, we do tend to think about Boston. But we want to show a different view of Boston here today, right? Because wherever there is, some narrative about colonial or like Puritans landing here, there's also the narrative of natives fighting back against that, making sure they have their land. Wherever there's a narrative of white people beating people up, there's also the narrative of people of color coming together and making sure that they're all right. Wherever there's a narrative of tech bros in Boston, there's also the narrative of people fighting to make sure that people who live here right now are not displaced. Boston, of course, has a lot of problems, but it is the city that me and Zach call home. And we see the good and the bad. There is some good things happening here in terms of politics, in terms of activism, and we want to talk about it today.
Yeah. And we have all different views of Boston because I believe we live in the easternmost and westernmost neighborhoods.
I think you're right. We live in literally diagonally represented places. Yeah.
So geographically, we've got it covered.
We got it covered from Roxbury to West Roxbury to wherever the hell. So what should we?
That all sounds really good, and that sounds like fun. I think that would be a great type of stuff to talk about on our show, like the Boston's history with these things. It doesn't get we don't talk maybe necessarily enough about how like Martin Luther King spent a lot of time here getting his degrees, and people like civil rights and neighborhood organizing icon Mel King, still alive, still living in the South End. We don't talk about those things enough, and unfortunately, I'm going to add to the problem because all I want to talk about is the Sox, baby.
Oh God. Okay. So I think this is the start of our next segment that we call Zach Talks About Sports Until Kendra Has Had Enough. Yes. So we're gonna let Zach talk about sports. I'm gonna eat my food. Have fun, Zach. Have at it.
So I want to give you the opportunity to add things, or if you need me to clarify, or if any of this sounds interesting at all, I would love to hear your take on it. But you also have the ability to hit the eject button in this at any time, because not only are we talking about sports, we are talking about baseball.
Okay.
Which is one of the, I get it. I understand why people don't like. Yes.
Zach, let's start here. What is a sport? Could you tell us what a sport is?
So a sport is a thing where I get to go and I get to drink a beer and I get to see a slam a jam or somebody rip a dinger or something to that effect, and I go, woo! That is a sport to me. But not only do we have sports to talk about, I think this is actually will be interesting because there is a lockout going on. So we have a chance to talk about labor in sports.
What's a lockout?
So a lockout is basically the owners of the MLB franchises having realized that the CBA that they have with the MLB Players Association has reached its end in 2021, and they know that they're going to have to go to the negotiating table. And it's sort of a like you can't quit, I'm firing you type of thing, where to preemptively prevent the players from being able to declare a strike, you declare a lockout. So they're not allowed. They're not allowed in the buildings. It stalls all sorts of negotiations, and it's basically a power play move by the owners to say that we're willing to stop all negotiation so that you have to come to us and you have to go to our needs now, because it is they do take steps like this largely in part because in this case at least the lockout starts as the season's over, so there's no real. I mean, pitchers and catchers report for spring training in mid-February, so there's a lot of time theoretically for this to get figured out. In the early '90s, I don't know who designed this, but the CBA ran out mid-season, and there was a lockout, and the players called the bluff, and there was no World Series that year, which is a pretty stupid move, I would say, if you own a baseball team and you do not let there be a World Series. That personally, I couldn't be me, but that was a thing that happened. In this instance, the lockout is starting in the off season, so that creates more time to solve the problem. Now, it is funny to see, like, if you go to MLB.com right now, not only are all of the articles just about old players, and there are no pictures. All of the rosters, they've removed the pictures of the players from because they no longer have an agreement with the Players Association, so they do not have the rights to use the pictures of the players. So there's like a lot of articles with just stock photos of baseballs, and so it is an interesting moment. Here's a few of the things that makes baseball a little bit different than other sports in terms of where we are in the negotiations. I think number one is, so you don't watch baseball, I know, but I think you have enough of a rudimentary idea to understand this concept, which is that in baseball, it's very easy to sort of moneyball the game in terms.
I don't know what Moneyball means.
It was a movie with Brad Pitt that's not particularly good. But basically, you can use advanced stats to figure out the worth of a player in a way that you can't really. Like in basketball, there's 5 guys on the court at the same time, so you can't. It's hard to differentiate who's doing exactly what on the stat line in terms of the math of that, because they're all doing different things. In football, it's the same thing. There's 11 guys. They're all doing different things. They all influence the outcomes for each other. Baseball, if you are batting, you are the only batter. So the outcome of and same if you're a pitcher. The outcome is pretty well determined by what you do. So the math will reflect how good you are and what you are. So the idea behind like Moneyball was figuring out that if you use these advanced stats, you could find players who were half as expensive as the star players, but you could get 80% of the production level from them. So basically, where the front offices of baseball teams used to be full of ex players and scouts and people who understood the game, now more and more baseball front offices are being full of numbers guys, so people from venture capital, people who are from McKinsey, like real Ivy League asshole terrible people who are just trying to figure out how to how to find the players that cost the least amount of money for the most amount of production. So that's where you get issues like the Red Sox trading away the second best player in baseball by all advanced metrics, because they understood that even though he's very good, they would have to pay him a lot, and if they could trade him away, they could pay less and get 80% of the value of that player. Even though that takes away the whole art and the enjoyment and the fun of watching the second best player in baseball. But for these people who it's all about just underlying metrics, they don't care. So it has become very gamified in that regard. The other thing is that all of these numbers related to how much am I paying? It doesn't matter, because baseball, unlike the other major sports, does not have a salary cap. In the other instances, you need to keep your salary. Each team can only have a salary of a certain level, and then after that, it gets complicated. But in baseball, if you reach a certain salary threshold, you have to pay a luxury tax. It doesn't matter. You can all of these teams are worth so much that they could field these teams if they wanted to. But the owners want to get as much profit from their very profitable franchises as possible. So even though there's nothing stopping them from spending the entire value of the franchise on the team, none of them want to, because again, these are capitalists. They want to extract as much as they want, even though there's no strategy behind it other than the money-based strategy.
I think I'm mostly confused because you're talking about math.
Okay.
So it's like rich people extracting labor value off of players.
Right.
Or like perceived value of how many people will come out off of players.
Right. And in a sport like basketball or football, there is some strategic value to that, because you have to keep your overall team salary under a certain level. Mm-hmm. It is purely greed on the baseball level.
Okay.
And then the final thing is that unlike other sports, baseball has gotten in trouble for collusion in the past. Where
collusion of what? What they collude
in the mid 80s, teams were colluding to not. So basically, let's say you own the Sox and I own the Mets, and you have a very
to be in that position.
You have a very good player that's about to hit free agency, and you don't know if you're going to be able to pay what he will get on the open market if every team is bidding. So you say to me, hey, listen, if you don't place a bid on this player, I will then next season, when your big guy comes up for free agency, I won't place a bet on him. So if the teams collude to not play the free agency game, that keeps all salaries down, because then they don't have to compete with each other. Mm-hmm. So in the same way that like there was always talk about Colin Kaepernick trying to have a collusion lawsuit against the NFL. That would have been a little bit difficult to prove, because even though all of these owners were acting in a racist, cowardly way, it would be difficult to prove that they colluded to act it. They could all be doing it of their own individual volition.
Okay.
Whereas in the case of baseball, we know there is precedent. They have gotten in trouble for it in the past, for acting in a collusionary way to depress salaries of players.
Okay. Which is not good.
So yes. So those are the big differences. Now, when it comes to what the players are looking for, the biggest thing is that they don't reach free agency for a very long time in their careers. So they end up on these minor league salaries for their early 20s, their most productive and healthiest parts of their careers. They're getting paid basically nothing. Or if they want to get paid, they need to wait until they can enter arbitration, which is different than free agency, because you're only arguing with your own team saying you're worth more. Whereas free agency, you can leverage teams against each other.
Okay.
and teams do all kinds of bullshit stuff to keep your arbitration date as far back as possible. They'll take star players and keep them in the minor leagues for the beginning of the season, so then that season doesn't, like, oh, you started the season in the minors, so that does not count as a full year of you being a major league player. They find all these ways to work around the way that the players' contracts are set up, so that you can keep them cheap for as long as possible, and they don't get to test the market, and then they don't reach free agency until they're like 28. So that's it's
bad.
And I know that it's easy to make this into millionaires versus billionaires, but you know what? As much money as these players are making, a bad slide in second, and that's it. That the whole thing is over. You tear the wrong ligament, you get the wrong thing happens to you, and the gravy train stops coming. Whereas if you are an owner, you can have a historically bad run of years, like the Baltimore Orioles have done, where they've been one of the worst teams in the history of baseball in the last 3 years, and nothing happens to you. You will still be a billionaire. You can own the New York Mets and put yours truly through a lot of years of sadness and shame.
Is that a diss against the Mets? I don't even know. Wait. Also, we probably should stop soon because we have 10 minutes left.
All right. Yep. I told you to hit the eject button whenever it was time. The point is, fuck the owners, support the baseball players, and play ball.
Okay, cool. Do we have a commercial break this week, or
we do?
All right, we will be back after this brief commercial break.
Hey folks, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by the Christmas Tree Shops. You know that store, the Christmas Tree Shops? There's probably one near you. Look it up. There's one around. Anyway, the Christmas Tree Shops would like to remind you that they are a completely normal store. It's that time of year when you need Christmas stuff, so you're going to go there. It's totally normal, just like a Halloween store, except it's not going to go away at the end of the season. It's going to be around all year long and forever, and that is normal. Stop thinking it's weird. Stop thinking that there's got to be some kind of other agenda or some sort of moving around money for tax purposes, maybe laundering some illicit funds for drugs or guns or something. No. It's just Christmas stuff. People love Christmas stuff. Of course they have Christmas stuff all year round. That makes total sense. Stop thinking it's weird. You're weird for thinking that there's anything weird about a store that exists to sell reindeer-covered toilet seat covers and tablecloths with Christmas trees and exists all year round. And also, you're weird if you think it's weird that when you go into a Christmas tree shop, they don't actually have a ton of ornaments for a Christmas tree, the way that those old Hallmark stores used to always have a lot of ornaments around this time of year. And you go in there and you're like, where are the ornaments? And then you realize there's like one shelf that has a few ornaments and most of them suck. You're weird for thinking that's weird. It's called the Christmas Tree Shop because people there like Christmas and people associate Christmas with a tree, okay? Stop thinking it's weird, okay? It makes perfect sense. So support your local Christmas tree shop. Buy some whatever. I mean, they don't have Christmas trees, but they have sort of Christmas-themed stuff that you can put around your house. And that's totally normal for a store to do all year round. And you're weird for thinking that it's weird. That's just all they want. That's what they wrote on the copy. They wanted me to tell you that you're weird for thinking that their store is weird. So hope you're enjoying the rest of the show.
That was incredible. That was great.
All right. So things are happening.
Things are happening. There's a lot happening in Boston.
Boston edition. So if you have if you have anything to talk about, if you have anything you want us to talk about, put it in the chat. But we're particularly focused on some Boston issues.
Boston local things, yeah.
Yes. This is our fucking city.
This is our fucking city. We run this, even though we are both from the Mid-Atlantic.
Yes. Yep.
with no immediate family based here. We run the city. We run this.
Right. Exactly. I agree. So one cool thing is that there are Starbuckses that are unionizing.
There are Starbuckses that are unionizing. There was one in Buffalo that unionized. They voted to unionize. They are officially a union. Another in Buffalo is like being contested, but that union wave is spreading to Boston, and there's a few shops in Boston that are unionizing. I think that's awesome.
Yep.
It's
the
really
one
good.
on Com Ave in Brighton and one in Brookline by Coolidge Corner, I believe.
Good for them. Yeah, honestly. Okay, I especially hope the Brookline one unionizes because I know it's probably annoying working there.
Oh gosh.
I would shoot myself, honestly. But anyway, good for them. That's what I have to say. Good for them. I hope they unionize.
Yep. In other news, Charlie Baker is fucking off. He's
leaving. He's leaving. Goodbye. Yeah.
See you later, Charlie. Good riddance. I
am not sad.
Yeah, a big oaf. Just the dumbest people in the world. Like are like that's all they want is like a smiley, non-offensive Republican. That is truly. I mean, it's just he's like a goofier Mitt Romney. I mean, it's that this is truly what the supposed blue state of Massachusetts really wants. Is they want a goofy, non-threatening Republican who's just threatening in terms of if you want to get to work on time and take the tea.
Yeah. That is what Massachusetts is about, unfortunately.
Yep. Something cool. So I haven't paid very much attention to the next round of gubernatorial elections, but it seems like Sonia Chang Diaz is the most interesting candidate to me.
Okay.
And she got
her name is ethnic. She has an ethnic name.
It is, yes. And she got in trouble this week, or people wanted her to be in trouble because one of her staffers was wearing an ACAB hat.
Wait, that makes me want to pay attention.
Yes.
That's good.
I mean, she couched it. She's like, I don't necessarily agree with what my staffers wear, but I support what they're saying. And then said that Republicans and police unions are a bunch of fucking, like if basically her words is like, if you don't want these people to wear ACAB hats, then stop committing hate crimes, which is I think a pretty reasonable, moderate decision.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's perfectly fine. Good for her. It would be cool if we didn't have someone who wanted to suck the police's dick all the time.
Yes.
In office.
Just a little bit of the time.
Just occasionally, but yes. What else is happening this week, Zach?
Let's see. Well, there's there is a sports team, a local town's sports high school sports team got in trouble for racism and homophobia. Would you like to guess the town, or would you like to guess the sport? It's a high school sport.
High school sport, lacrosse.
It is not lacrosse. That's a good guess. It was wrestling.
Oh fuck. Okay.
Yes, and the town is Danvers.
Okay.
Yep. I don't have enough understanding of the local character of places. I don't know anything about Danvers, but I imagine it's a town in Massachusetts, so it is probably chock full of racists.
Yeah, it's kind of Route 1E. No offense to anyone who lives in Saugus, Revere, or like wherever, but yeah, you're not wrong. Yes. But yeah, we have just like 3 minutes left, and I think it is time for your closing remarks. Boston.
Oh boy, do I have a closing remark this week? Not only do I have closing remarks, I have a visual aid to explain what I want to talk about. Because Michelle Wu is now the mayor of Boston, as we talked about, and she got some pretty cool ideas in terms of what she wants to do to the T, especially now that Charlie Baker is leaving and he's really done a good job of just privatizing and fucking it up. One thing that she wants to do is make the T free. And that I think that is a really cool idea, and she's piloting it on a couple of buses that run through Mattapan to Roxbury Crossing and to Ruggles. So for a long time, that's been a sort of a thing that T advocates and advocates of transit justice want to see the Longwood area and Mattapan connected because both for personal reasons, people who live in Mattapan may need to use the Longwood medical area. Either for personal medical reasons, or it is also a source of a lot of jobs in the city. So improving that connection is a huge thing. So one way to do that is to make those buses free. That makes it easier for a lot of people. But another cool thing is on Blue Hill Ave, they're going to add a bus lane, an internal bus lane. I'll move over here to help. So if you see how it looks right there, in the middle of the street, not unlike the Green Line, there's a dedicated bus lane and bus stops so that the bus does not have to move with the same traffic as everybody else. It gets its own priority that can't be impeded by regular cars. You see similar things in other parts of Boston. A lot of them are in the right lane, so they don't really work as well because parking and stuff like that. But giving that bus lane should do a lot of infrastructure improvements on Blue Hill Ave in terms of how fast these buses can get to Ruggles and Roxbury Crossing. And there's bike lanes, which is good there. And people who like cars are going to be mad about this, but guess what? There's a little thing that you learn in city planning called induced demand. There will always be traffic wherever you put it. If you put another traffic lane, there will just be more people driving on the road. The only way to reduce traffic is not by giving more lanes to cars. It is by creating alternate routes of travel, and a dedicated bus lane that makes buses move real fast is the best way to do that. And that is a cool thing. Everything that we can do that it has less cars means less traffic. So that's all there is to say about that.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us during our special Boston version of A Left Night. Tune in next week. We will be here next week. And stay tuned for honorable mentions with Rachel Jane Andelman, which is right down there. All right. So we will see you next week.